Well, so the last thing maybe to talk about is the Solomon Islands. So the Solomon Islands has been increasingly cozying up to the CCP, and that's in large measure because the Solomon Islands leader, Sogavare, is kind of authoritarian and sees the advantages of cozying up to China. Shelley thinks this is very funny. I feel like you're laughing at me, Shelley.
What's happening?
I
hate it when you two fight.
I'm not fighting. I just can't stop laughing.
I don't understand what's happening. I feel like you're laughing at me. I don't understand why.
Maybe we just need to leave this whole thing in. This is so character revealing. We're really letting people see behind the scenes.
No,
I'm not laughing at you. It's that I feel slightly hysterical because of what just happened, the part that we cut out. And then when you started talking about the Solomon Islands again, you ever just start breaking and you can't stop?
No, that doesn't happen to other people.
Okay, well, SNL would say differently. But anyway, start again,
You're
please.
a regular Jimmy Fallon.
So the Solomon Islands has been cozying up to the CCP for years. And I feel like I've said this over and over again. It's a horrible idea.
Oh no! We gotta leave this in.
Can we?
I think we just gotta leave the whole thing in.
How do we do a podcast?
Folks, thanks for watching China Unscripted.
No.
Watch about the Solomon Islands in our other episode.
This is awful.
This is vote below. I'm sure the audience loves this.
I can't anymore.
Okay, well, the Solomon Islands told Australia that they were definitely not going to have a Chinese naval base in their country.
Right.
Like pinky swear, you know.
Right. And so they'll probably keep that promise.
But go ahead, Matt. What were you saying about the Solomon Islands?
That the U.S. is concerned about the degree to which the Solomon Islands is cozying up to the CCP. For example, like allowing Chinese police to, be stationed there. And
it was Chris this time.
Chris, you got to stop.
I can't.
I don't think this is like.
I'm not laughing at you.
Look,
neither am I.
I feel like this is a really important issue, and it's just not being taken seriously.
What makes you say that?
Look, there's no use beating a dead horse, especially with a giant cow knife.
Well, I do think that one thing we see with the Solomon Islands is that...
keep in mind, with how you started, there's no cut point from everything that has gone before.
Are we screwed? Should we start over for a third time?
There's no starting over, Shelley.
There's
there's no fixing this one in post. This is truly China Unscripted.
Okay, well, what I was going to say is that the Solomon Islands, the CCP really only needs one country in the Pacific to start to break up the Pacific Islands as a group of nations, right? And it's obviously the Solomon Islands, since they essentially, during this big summit with the U.S. and different Pacific islands, they managed to get the U.S. to remove certain sections of this agreement they all signed that indirectly referenced China before they agreed to sign it. So this is exactly how China split up the ASEAN by getting like certain countries like Malaysia, which didn't have a dispute with China, territorial dispute.
The EU too, like they were getting Greece on their side, and a lot of the 16+1 countries.
Greece blocked a resolution that would have been about China's human rights
Yeah.
abuses. So yeah, they've got the Solomon Islands now.
Yeah, you just need one person. Like, for example, like if you're having an intelligent conversation about the Solomon Islands and somebody starts laughing,
Yeah, it's all my fault.
it just breaks everything, despite the brilliant hard work of the one man trying to keep us on the rails.
Truly, Matt, you're the long-suffering part of this podcast.
I feel like that sometimes when you laugh at me.
I wasn't laughing at you.
No, I
We
hear
were
you.
laughing with you.
No, I don't think that was it either.
I don't think that was it either.
It's those two options.
And while I do like seeing the world completely in black and white like that, there was a good point that Shelley was getting at. Shelley.
Which was what?
Well, that they got that the Solomon Islands got the U.S. to change the language of the whole agreement for everyone, to remove references to China, and that's already a way to break down the strength of what the U.S. is trying to do in the region, which is build up, let's just strengthen their alliance with the U.S. So as to block China from using those islands as, for their expansionist plans. And, but now that they have the Solomon Islands, and once they build the naval base that they promised not to build, or they'll maybe call it something else, right? But like now China can keep its
Marine observatory.
Yeah, it can keep its naval vessels that are just for scientific purposes. They can now bring them outside of the first island chain and into the Pacific and keep them like basically on the other side of Taiwan. And now the Chinese Navy is far more powerful because it just needed that one island to keep its ships at, right? Like this is actually a huge thing. And again, it hasn't happened yet, but that's the plan.
Are you saying we're ship out of luck?
It's very good, Chris.
Thank you.
Chris,
Thank
you've
you.
been the one making all the puns this episode.
Does that even count as a pun?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I don't know what words mean. But yeah, I wonder what the thinking was in the U.S. Like why did they decide it was so important to get the Solomon Islands to just sign the agreement, even if they have to remove out anything that's like remotely China related? They should have read The Art of the Deal.
I mean, because it's also a big loss of face for the Solomon Islands to be the only country that's like, we're not signing.
That's how you play hardball in a deal.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, as Matt says, like, this just paves the way for increasing China's influence. I mean, we've talked about how, over the course of this podcast, we've talked about all the ways that, China pushes the envelope. And, yeah, that naval base definitely will happen. They're already training, the Chinese police are already training Solomon Island police. I'm sure there'll be more of a presence of actual Chinese police in the Solomon Islands sooner or later. People don't really understand the importance of these Pacific Island nations because they're not up on World War II history. But yeah, I mean, it is surrounding Taiwan. It is giving them control over massive shipping lanes.
Right. I mean, despite all the technology we have now compared to the 1940s, like most goods are transported internationally over the ocean on ships. Ships still remain the best way to move troops and supplies and even aircraft. So, like, it's still like World War III will still largely be a naval battle, or will have a substantial amount of that, even though we're going to have, stuff in space and stuff with hacking and, all that sort of thing. But like the Navy is still like a really core part of it. So it's like these nations are so critical. And we've tried to do this on our podcast to discuss this, and we brought on guests like Cleo Pascal, and we've had people on from the Solomon Islands, and like it's like you gotta really keep talking about it because it's so make or break for what happens with China.
Yeah, it is. It is really important to talk about. You're 100% right, and it's frustrating when people will just start laughing and breaking up that kind of a conversation because it is important.
Yeah, I agree, Chris Chappell. You're a good man.
So are you, Matt.
Thanks, Chris.
So are you, Shelley. You two are like brothers to me.